what's this thing with Trump and you? It's like me and Letterman. What has he got against you here? I don't get it.
This all dates back to when we were growing up together in Kenya.
Yeah. I gotta give you that one.
We had, constant run-ins on the soccer field. And, he wasn't very good and resented it. When we finally moved to America, I thought it'd be over.
But no. Have you met him? I know you're been in the same room. I saw you at the correspondence. Have you met him?
I haven't, actually.
President Obama, speaking in 2012, apparently never met real estate developer Donald Trump when Mr. Trump spent months railing at President Obama to release his real birth certificate. But now Mr. Trump is apparently launching a campaign to not just meet, but to actually become President of the United States. And Republican voters apparently don't mind the idea too terribly much. And I do not understand to think about that. I do not understand how to think about it. I do not understand what it means. I don't even understand whether or not this is politics. Joining us now is someone who I would like to help me, the host of Hardball, Chris Matthews. Chris, my friend, thank you so much for being here.
So I'm the Grand Vizier when it comes to explaining Trumpy.
I just feel like I don't honestly know if this is just a celebrity reality TV thing that I don't get. Is this real politics? He kind of polls well.
Well, he's kind of a comic book figure. I mean, if you imagine in a Superman or better yet, a Batman comic episode, he would be like downtown developer, walking around with his trench coat, good-looking wife, lots of money, flash. He's a show-off, and he's the kind of guy, a sort of a Sinatra of land development, where the average working guy who doesn't have much money says, this is how I'd behave if I were rich. I'd have big buildings named after me. I'd have a beautiful wife. I may have several wives. I'd show off, talk about running for president even. I'd make fun of other people. I'd be kind of a wise guy, a show-off. I can't do better than that. And that's what he is. And I think that's the appeal, just that.
When he was making noise about running in 2012, I'm sure you remember this. We were all part of it in some degree or not, but with the tons and tons and tons of attention, not just on cable, but from all the networks and tons of print media attention. Everybody was talking about the possibility of him running and the way he was attacking President Obama. This time, not so much. Nobody, I know Jeb today kind of stepped on him a little bit because he's going to announce tomorrow, but it's not as much noise about him this time.
Well, unlike Charlie Brown in Peanuts, you and I finally realized that Lucy's going to drop the football. She's not going to hold it for us. I mean, how many seasons do we have to go through when Charlie Brown would realize too late that he was on his butt because Lucy dropped the ball, wouldn't hold it for him when he went to kick? And after all this time, I think as you pointed out, we've gotten tired of the game because there's never a chance to kick the football. Well, I guess this time he's going to run. On the issue of the birth certificate, I think that's where the malice comes in. I think as a business guy, he deals with a lot of land developers who are very right-wing, very hawkish, on the Middle East especially, very hawkish. And I bet every time he walks into a business meeting with one of those fellas, they congratulate him for accusing Obama of being a foreigner, some sort of usurper, a Kenyan, some absurd claim. They seem to like it because it is malicious, and it does play to racism. I'm not saying, Donald Trump's a racist, but he's playing to the rabble out there that love the fact that some rich, successful guy underwrites their claim that Obama shouldn't be president by some tribal illegitimacy. I think it's all very businesslike and malicious. I do think that.
Chris,
part of him.
There's a little bit of a zero-sum aspect to the Republican field this year that there isn't. That there hasn't been in other years, in part because of this high-stakes first televised debate. Fox has said they're only going to put 10 of these guys on at once. At least if it happened anytime soon, by my count, Trump would definitely be on the stage, and that would mean that somebody else who might be seen as a more serious candidate, a John Kasich or even a Rick Perry or a Rick Santorum, isn't going to be there because Trump is. If that holds through the fall, and he does actually both declare that he's running and go through the motions and make it into the debates, how does it affect the whole Republican field?
Well, it's like an Agatha Christie play. It is 10 Little Indians. And I think if he gets in there, he won't just get in there and push out or crowd out someone. He will be the show because he will attack whoever the front runner is. If it's Scott Walker, he'll knock his head off. He'll do the same to Marco Rubio or even to Bush if he makes a comeback. His whole game the first night out will be to knock out the front runner and get in the lead. He won't be in the jump. He'll be in the top of the story. And that will make the Republican Party look like a clown car because he's in it. It's going to happen. It's going to hurt the Republicans more than you seem dismayed by the man's media power. He's got it. People pay big money to live in one of his towers. They're paved with gold. You know, they're confections, but the people do go for it, as they went for Sinatra. Sinatra had talent. This guy's a particular kind of talent. It's called PR. He knows how to build himself up, and it's all part of this comic book image that people are taken with. They don't hate Donald Trump. People don't.
I gotta say,
find him entertaining.
For me, it's not dismay. It is actual confusion that I just can't see. Like, what I'm worried about is that I'm being taken for a ride. That this is something about a TV show that I don't watch. You know,
Rach, my friend, he's taken us 4 times for a ride. I went through the numbers. He ran in '88, 2000, 04, and 12. Every time he said he's going to run to the last minute, then he drops the football. And I think this time, as you pointed out earlier, he's going to have to run. This time he has to run. And the question is, will he actually file? You know, he put out some numbers today. He's worth $8 or $9 billion. And my question is, when he puts that under oath in his formal filings, I'll believe it. When he actually swears to that under the law, and that means he's actually running. But we don't know he's going to do that. If he does that, I'll be impressed that he's actually risking exposure to his, you know, the kind of body frisk that goes on for any candidate. It's going to be serious business because the press, even though they like the story, they like him on the way up. They're going to like him on the way down. Look how the press is going after Christie. Christie's always been good copy, and good or bad, whether the story's good or bad, Governor Christie's always going to be good copy, and so is Donald Trump. And that's the risk he's taking when he goes and puts his head into that noose and says, I am a candidate for president of the United States, that changes the rules of coverage. You're no longer covered as a colorful American comic figure. You're covered with the scrutiny and into sometimes the really toughness of politics. And that could be tough for him.
Chris Matthews.
He may really regret doing this. I don't know. He may well regret it.
Or he may have it all gamed out. I mean, we'll find out for sure tomorrow whether or not he's running. But I got to say, Chris, I didn't expect to be covering presidential politics this early, this intensely, this early in the year. But it's amazing, and I'm so looking forward to covering it with you all year.
Can I give you a prediction?
Yeah.
It still looks like Hillary's the next president.
You think so?
Yeah, it still looks like that.
Oh, let's keep talking about it all year.
I don't think it's bold at all.
Chris, thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rachel.
Chris Matthews, host of MSNBC's Hardball, which, of course, is weeknights on this network at 7 o'clock. But you already knew that. We'll be right back. Stay with us.